I go, the dog goes. We're attached at the hip.
Welcome to El Cafecito Travel Talks with Tony Lloyd. Each episode, Tony sits down with travelers, expats, creatives, and community voices from across Latin America and beyond, sharing stories of travel, culture, connection, and the journeys that shape us. So grab a cafecito or a tea and enjoy the conversation.
Hey, welcome back everyone. Today I'm sitting here with Troy. Troy was actually a guest here in the hostel and he's recently relocated to Cuenca. And just full disclosure, he's also a client of my relocation services. Troy, welcome. Welcome again.
Thank you.
Troy, in his recent relocation, has moved here with his dog. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that, what it means to relocate with a dog. Before we go further, could you explain to us a little bit, what's your dog's name? What breed of dog is it?
My dog's name is Cosmo, and he is a 3.5-year-old Boston Terrier.
So describe to us a little bit about the personality of your dog.
His personality is he is excitable and he's chill. So there's a contradiction. Yeah, he's both of those things. He will initially be excited to see someone new or go into a new environment. But once he's used to it, which will happen pretty quickly, he will just calm down and chill out. He's checked out the person or the place, and then he's cool.
Okay, so you'll say he's a sociable dog.
Yes.
Okay, that's nice to know. So what made you decide the move from the US to Ecuador, and especially to Cuenca?
A long story short,
Okay.
I needed some space from the US. I can view the US objectively from a distance. And I can recharge and I can return back to the U.S. But I can't live with the constant bombardment mentally. It affects my mental health. I feel like it affects my physical health and my spiritual health. And I just wanted to step back from it for a bit.
At what point did you decide or realize that you were going to take your dog with you in the journey?
There was never any question.
There was never any question. Okay.
No.
Well, that's
I go, the dog goes. We're attached at the hip.
So there was never a moment where you considered, I might leave him behind.
About 1,000th of a second.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. What was your biggest concern about relocating with a pet?
Was just worried about the complications of the paperwork.
What were some of the surprises that came up as you were doing your research?
The issue of cost, and then there was cost.
Okay.
And then the second issue, no one mentioned this issue of dogs with flat faces. And I looked this word up, brachycephalic faces.
Brachycephalic.
Yes. And that was never mentioned by the vets, or at least not to me. And I would have taken some other issues into account if I had known a little more about that. But he still would have had to come. So
Okay, so what is that and why is that important?
that is, if you have a dog with flat face, if you have such as a bulldog or a Boston Terrier or a pug, Shih Tzu, those kind of dogs with the little smashed in faces. And I also found out there's certain breeds of cats. If you have a Persian cat
Okay.
with the flat face, it has the potential to cause a lot of respiratory issues, altitude, air pressure, cabin temperature, cargo temperatures, the pressurization, it's all kinds of issues. You are definitely going to have to sign a release regardless of what kind of dog or what kind of pet you bring as far as responsibility. Forget about suing them or any company you use. And there are some airlines, if you happen to have one of these dogs or pets with the flat faces, that flat out, no pun intended, refuse to carry your pet. The policy is just, we don't take those pets.
Okay. What options were there for you to bring your dog from the US to Ecuador?
There's even an option to drive. You can take, and this was actually one of the recommended ways, take the Pan American Highway and, rent your car or truck and drive on down. Mm-hmm. And they actually still recommend that if you have several large dogs or something, they're saying, hey, it's cheapest way for you to get here is to drive.
So what were some of the other options that you had available to you?
I had cargo ship, which is cheaper but takes a while. Then all the options reverted to airlines and different ways that they could different transport companies. And if you type in international pet transport, you'll get hundreds, really, of companies that are located all over the place. Asia, Europe, Canada, America. The cheapest way, but if you have a small dog, I don't know, a little Chihuahua or something, even one of those boutique dogs that you can put in the purse, that's the cheapest way to travel. You take them in the cabin with you, anywhere from $125 to $200 extra. And they go on the same flight and you're all set.
So even if the dog could fit in your purse and you're carrying the dog on as within your carry-on bag, you still have to pay an additional fee?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so
and
there's
the
no
dog
way...
may count as your carry-on bag in some airlines. So
okay, so there's no way to get around not paying for the dog.
There's a fee, yeah.
Okay, so you could have the dog come on with you on the plane. The other options would be...
There are cargo options. If your dog is, you can say it again, brachycephalic or flat-faced, every airline says no to cargo. Absolutely no, nope, we won't do it. And then I'll tell you about exceptions that we'll do it.
Okay. So if you did have a dog that was flat-faced, that was larger, then how do you get them from the US to Latin America?
Then comes the cost and the complications.
Okay.
Every dog you're traveling with has to have the health certificates from the States, from a USDA, if you're coming from the States. I'm sure there's equivalents in other countries. USDA certified paperwork that needs to be completed, that your vet can complete for international travel. They have to have rabies shots. They have to have the microchip. There's some, depending on the country, specific shots. After that, and your vet submits the paperwork, then that paperwork, including paperwork from the country that you're going to, is all submitted at once, and all kinds of things happen behind the scenes. And ask me the question again, because I forgot where I was going with this.
What would happen if your dog was larger, and then also had the flat face issue?
So my dog was 2 pounds heavier and 1 inch longer than the airline requirements. And that meant automatic rejection. So I had, from the airlines, they're just like, we're not dealing with it. And he had the flat face. I ended up choosing something called Pet Commute, which was a pet transport company.
Or Pet Nanny, right? Also?
They have nannies, but they had different services within their own company.
Okay.
The nanny was just the one that I chose because basically all the other options were not available to me.
But explain what a pet nanny is, first of all.
A pet nanny is a job that I'm really considering. Is a person who flies with your pet. They're not a vet necessarily. They may be a vet assistant, but they are experienced, even if not a vet assistant, with traveling with pets. They've been vetted. They also have a love of dogs, and I'm sure cats or whatever pets you have. They're people whose job is to accompany your pet. If there's any layovers, they take your pet out for the walk. They feed your pet. They make sure that everything medically is okay with your pet. If something goes wrong, they'll get off the plane with your pet and look for a vet, and they contact their company and that kind of thing. So basically, they're a nanny. They accompany your dog. They're a pet nanny, a dog nanny, animal nanny.
And I think also
they're Mary Poppins for dogs.
Okay. And I think also it's important to note here that the dog is not traveling with you. You and your dog were on 2 different flights.
That is correct. That becomes expensive. That I didn't want to do. But again, my dog, because of all his issues and weight and size and face, respiratory issues or potential respiratory issues, I had to put him on a separate flight.
Possible, or do they have situations where you could fly and your pet nanny and your dog fly at the same time, or is it necessary that you are all on different flights?
That could be an option. If I had done this far enough in advance, but I already had my flight booked and he had already been rejected, my dog, Cosmo had already been rejected, and I had already had the flight booked. So what I did instead was just have the nanny come on the next nearest flight or the closest flight. We coordinated it.
Okay.
It was about a day and a half later.
Well, that's something for people to ask if they decide to use this type of service, whether or not it would be possible for the dog to be with the pet nanny on the exact same flight. Because the pet nanny is required, right?
Yeah, and that's things, I don't know how this works with the companies themselves or what kind of arrangements the transport companies have with the airlines. Because as far as I know, the nanny could take my dog on the flight because the dog was categorized as a service dog.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what paperwork they did or how they managed that or what kind of arrangements they have. And I'm sure they have some kind of professional arrangement with the airlines. Our liability issues already resolved with airlines, but I couldn't do that as an individual.
What was it like knowing or the feeling of saying, there's a perfect stranger traveling with my dog and I have to travel separately from my dog? What was that sort of feeling like?
It wasn't a perfect stranger. It was Walter, who we were introduced to, we being me and my sister, and who then got our numbers, and we had his number and the number of the managing agency, the transport agency, which I also chose because I'm from Kansas City, and that the nearest agency was in Salt Lake City, which was a couple states. It was like the closest one, and that's important because you have to fly the nanny to your point of departure. That's another issue. Okay. But he was not a stranger. He he asked about the dog and the dog's personality and any issues with the dog and spoke to us directly, and we corresponded through WhatsApp messages. Okay. Told a little bit about himself, and the company did as well. He was a fluent Spanish speaker, and that turned out to be very important. I didn't even think of that. I was already in Ecuador, and Cosmo left the next day. My sister brought him to the airport. First picture was Cosmo being handed over to my sister, a little video clip of that. And then him, giving Cosmo some love because Cosmo was confused. Okay. And then the next picture that I got messages from him saying he had boarded the plane and they were on their way. Then the next message I received was they arrived in Quito. Okay, so hours later. So
constantly along the way, they kept, whenever possible, sending messages.
And he would say, he's doing fine. He pooped. I fed him. He ate. Everything's cool. Everything's going well.
Okay, so actually, that's quite comforting to know along the way that is being happening. Looking back, would there have been anything that you would have changed?
I would have done it much further in advance, because even the way I did it, even with the nanny, I think I could have done it cheaper, for less expensively.
Okay, and when you say much further in advance, what would be your recommendation for somebody who's listening right now? What does much further in advance look like?
6 months, because you can do some thorough research. There are far more companies than I knew of. I also discovered could have transported him without a nanny, which again would have dramatically reduced the cost. And that was because I discovered after the fact that there are companies that have arrangements with the same airlines that reject you as an individual to put pets, even pets with flat faces, into pressurized cabins where they notify the actual captain, the crew of the plane that this is what's happening, and they're in their own specialized pressurized section of the cargo hold. And in addition to some major airlines that will do that, there are private airlines. They're more expensive, but they do the same thing. But there are two options with the private ones, the pet transports. Some will put your pet in the cabin. Some have specialized cargo areas. Again, live animal transport, they refer to it as.
Oh, okay.
And you just do these fit to fly certificates, things that your vet has to do. It's basically the same paperwork. That paperwork costs hundreds of dollars, I might add. It's not, so that is just a given.
Okay. A rough cost, like what would you say the rough cost to do something like this?
You're going to pay between $1,000 and $6,000. I did not pay $6,000, but I paid more than $1,000. Again, remember, if you can get your pet on the plane, you're paying $200 extra max.
Okay.
But if you have a large dog with the long nose, I don't know I'm sure there's a word for that.
Okay.
That's probably going to cost you a couple thousand, $1,000 minimal, or to a couple thousand. It's also, I mean, it's nice to know that somebody's traveling with your pet and your pet's not all by itself. That is the most expensive route to take as far as flying with an animal. And they do take more than dogs. I do want to emphasize that. They take dogs, cats, birds, lizards.
So what was it like when you finally met up with your dog again in Ecuador?
I was happy. The nanny arrived in Cuenca and literally said hello. We took pictures. We smiled. We shook hands. He handed over the dog. He handed over paperwork for the dog.
Okay.
Told me everything was fine. Everything went well. And he literally turned around and walked back and got back on the same plane that was going back from Cuenca to Quito.
And then back out to the U.S.
And then back out. So he didn't stay overnight. He was here for about 15, 20 minutes max.
Okay, understandable. And what was it like for your dog the first few days here?
I think he had some issues with the height. We were going upstairs and going up hills, and he was huffing and puffing, and I was huffing and puffing. So that took a little bit.
So you both had to adjust to the altitude.
Yeah. Then there was the issue of just meeting new dogs. He was confused. Yeah, every smell, we had to stop. Everything was different for him.
Okay.
Because he knew he was in a different environment. I think the biggest challenge was the actual apartment that I moved to temporarily. And it has these sort of open stair architectural design. He was terrified of those. He couldn't go up and down those stairs because you could see through them, so to speak, or in between them. Mm-hmm. And that terrified him. And I actually did have to carry him. So this is a good thing for not having a big dog. I carried him up and down the stairs for about 3 days before he finally would take that first step that didn't fall into oblivion. So
okay. And any other issues? How about his eating habits?
He adapted pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. I was nervous. I'm still nervous because I knew what food I was buying and what was in it and whatnot in the States. They had some brands that were the same, but most were not. And the brands that are the same, very expensive. Mm-hmm. And so I'm using... And when dogs switch foods, they usually get stomach upsets if you do it too fast. So I've found something that he's eating, and it's reasonably priced. And did my visual translator, and it seems to be decent ingredients.
Is there anything that you suggest to people that, maybe they might want to bring, or even actually when the dog was traveling from the US to here, anything special they might want to pack with the dog or give to the nanny?
Yeah, they'll actually ask you to, if you had something that smells like you, basically. You got an old shirt or whatever, you throw that in there. Okay. My dog has my old underwear, some old T-shirts, old socks. Let's not go there. Okay. Old socks. Okay. So if you got an underwear thing going. But the companies actually recommend that you put that in the cage with them because it helps to keep them calm. Okay. I mean, they base you on your scent, not on your look. And a favorite toy.
Now that you're here in Ecuador, how difficult was it, or how did you go about finding housing for you and your dog?
To come to Ecuador, I did some research on places that were pet friendly. Mm-hmm. Not pet friendly, but places that I wanted to stay. Mm-hmm. And I had 112 options. And then I put in the filter pet friendly, and that 112 or 111 options went down to between 9 and 12 options.
So you would say that's when it's important to have a connection here in Ecuador?
Yes, because the options are more expensive, and they don't have to be if you know somebody here. You make a connection before you come here. But if you have a connection, say like the person I'm speaking with.
Who could that be?
I don't know. Some guy named Tony has a hostel. That's a good connection.
So basically, you'd recommend using a relocation service, or somebody who could help you with the relocation process to let you know what's going on.
Because once I got here, Oh, there's all kinds of ways to get your pets into places much cheaper. Places that say no online, or will actually say yes with you. You talk to them a little bit, and they see your pet, and your pet has a good personality, and it's not destructive or aggressive.
I guess what we should tell people is that one of the ways that when we spoke to the landlord initially, that the house that you're moving into, the apartment that you're moving into, they were like, no pets at all. But after being that we knew somebody who knew the landlord, all her life, they went to school together. Yeah. We were able to converse a little bit more. And also then finally the landlord says, okay, let's see some pictures. And once we were able to send over some pictures, she agreed on it. So, like most things in Latin America, and I've said this on several of the podcasts before, it's not through the internet. It's personal connection. Yeah. Not to ring my own bell right now, but maybe a little bit. That's the difference in being able to use a service that will provide you with those sort of connections.
Yeah. Connections and relationships, of which I had none or one.
Okay. Is there anything else that you think is important for a dog owner or a pet owner to know in this whole process from start to finish that we haven't talked about?
If you have a pet, you know how you relate to your pet. Your pet's family. You're not going anywhere without it, so just keep that in mind. If you're making the move, your pet's making the move. I don't have anything to add. Really, it's going to be a process, and it's almost certainly, unless you're moving your entire household, your furniture and whatnot, it's going to cost you more money to move your pet than it is going to cost to move yourself. I mean, and I'm throwing in, even if you're taking your pet on the plane, you're still going to have a lot of paperwork to complete, and that paperwork and the shots and the microchips, that's all going to add up. That's another reason to prepare in advance. Just start putting some dog travel money aside if you're planning on moving, in addition to your own money, your own financial situation. You have to add that.
Okay. But overall, you would say it's worth it to have your dog with you? Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah. He's my buddy.
Okay. The dog's best.
24/7.
Man's best friend.
Right,
okay.
Right.
Well, thanks again. Thanks again for taking the time to talk with me. I know that we've had a few interruptions with all these blowing horns all over the place and everything. Yes. My love to Cosmo, and
he's gonna come and visit you someday, right here.
Exactly. I've met Cosmo. I've met him. And for anyone out there that is looking to do something like that, let us know, and we could help you with some more questions for more details.
Don't rush into anything. There's plenty of companies, a lot of competition out there for this service, the transport service.
Thanks again. Have a great afternoon, rest of your afternoon.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of El Cafecito Travel Talks with Tony Lloyd. If you'd like to learn more about today's guest, check the podcast notes for links and information related to this episode. And if you have questions, stories, or topics you'd love us to explore in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Tony also helps independent travelers plan meaningful journeys throughout Central and South America, including cultural and community-based experiences. And if you'd like to support the podcast and help keep these conversations going, you'll find a contribution link in the podcast notes. Until next time, thank you for sharing a cafecito or tea with us, and safe travels wherever your journey may take you.